I bet you didn't know that there are actually 4 Dungeons and Dragons movies. So let's talk about the latest one. Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is, yes, the 4th movie having to do with the IP Dungeons and Dragons, with the last outing releasing in 2012, making this an 11-year gap between the last Dungeons and Dragons movie and this one. However, luckily those old Dungeons and Dragons movies are not required viewing for this one, because those old ones are really, really bad. This one though, it might have rolled a natural 20. So let's get into this review. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is directed by John Francis Daley and Jonathan Goldstein. This is a story of a ragtag party trying to right the wrongs and overthrow a tyrannical government, and along the way encounter dungeons, dragons, and a lot of mistakes and what many might consider natural ones. This is a really fun movie. I had a lot of fun watching this. The plot is probably the weakest part. Even though the plot might be weak and there's a lot of plot contrivances and a lot of plot holes, and if you think too much about it, then you might just find a lot of problems with this film. It fits within what a D&D campaign might feel like if you're playing one, and I think that's a beautiful thing. While that description might feel like I'm really just trashing this movie's story, it's actually a pretty decent story. It's just not up to par with what a great film story might be. There are some issues here and there and some character changes that happen very radically and very quickly, just because there's a larger focus on other elements of this movie, like the dialogue, the characters, and the cinematic aspects of this film. This film is very, very fun. That is one of the best ways that's one of the best adjectives I can find to describe this movie. It's a fun film. It's what every D&D party would hope their campaign to be. It's filled with great characters with strong backgrounds, funny moments and character interactions that include both amazing successes and terrible failures. This is what D&D is, and they brought it to cinema. They brought this on film, and that's an amazing thing. In theory, it's not hard to make a D&D movie because you already have a world built for you. You just have to build an adventure within this lore-ridden world. It seems easy on paper, but obviously it's pretty hard to pull off because there's 3 movies that didn't pull it off or pulled it off in a very terrible fashion. But this one really hit the nail on the head in my opinion. I had a lot of fun watching this. Like I said, the characters are all great. The story's really, really fun. It had me laughing out loud throughout the entire movie. There's very few slow moments. I will say that the plot is very predictable, and once you see where it's going, it can be kind of slow from there. But it doesn't stop the action. Oh my god, the action is so much fun, so enjoyable to watch, and really satisfying. Throughout this film, there's a ton of different combat encounters that showcase the abilities of each of our heroes and what their class might be. And it's just so cool to see something that I grew up playing and watching hours and hours of YouTube videos on, just wishing and hoping to find a party of my own. It's so cool to see that in cinema. I really enjoyed my time with this movie. This comes in at just under 2 hours and 15 minutes, and every moment of that is action-packed, character-driven, fun-filled, and just an overall good popcorn muncher movie. I'm just going to go ahead and rate this best movie ever, so go out and see it. This is one of those projects that definitely deserves a theater experience and deserves that money to be thrown at it because this is good. This is a good movie that you're not going to walk away from disappointed in my eyes. So as you can tell, I really enjoyed this film and I enjoyed my theater viewing experience. But from a critical perspective, let's get into the numbers for nerds. So when it came to the cinematic aspects of this film, like I said, I really enjoyed the look, the sound, and the feel of everything that I was seeing on screen. There were a few problems with CGI every now and then with some of the monsters that were on screen, but overall everything looked really nice. So I gave this an 8 out of 10. Character is also another 8 out of 10. Everyone here is fun to be around. The only problems that I had with characters overall though were that some were really shallow or were just an archetype, which you could argue is part of the D&D experience. However, for a cinematic experience, it makes it a bit shallow and can make some characters more boring than others. But all the heroes that were on screen were very interesting to follow, with some of them having some strong character development as well. Conflict was a 9 out of 10. All of the combat encounters here were super fun and very imaginative, with amazing pieces that kept you invested in the action that you were seeing, and with very creative set pieces as well. Everything was really fun to look at in the conflict. The only reason I gave it a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10 is just because of some of the plot and some of the conflicts were unnecessary, but whenever they did show up, they were fun to watch. Dialogue was a 7 out of 10. I was laughing the entire time, and there were some really good and clever jokes, but on top of that, there was also some really good and clever dialogue as well, but nothing life-changing or anything like that, so 7 out of 10, it's good. Plot, I gave a 6 out of 10. The only reason that plot is a 6 out of 10 is that it's very predictable. You know where the film is going to go as soon as it starts taking off in that second act. But that's not really terrible in the case of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, because the movie is definitely carried by those characters and great action set pieces, and that the film knows that. The plot is just substantial enough to keep my interest and raise that suspense score, which we'll get into in a second. And that's really all it needs to do. But because I was still able to be invested in this story, even though I knew where most of the plot beats were going to hit, it's still better than average in my opinion. That's why I gave this a 6 out of 10. Suspense though is an 8 out of 10. This film is so much fun to watch. There's very few short lulling moments where I wasn't very interested. This is action packed, the pacing is very well done, and it grabs your attention and holds it. That's going to bring this average score to an 8 out of 10. This movie is great. I loved this film. I enjoyed it. Whenever it comes out on DVD, I will most definitely be buying it. Whenever it comes out on streaming, I'll probably be rewatching it with friends. I had a fun time with this film. I had very low expectations and they were blown out of the water. Okay? Whenever you have the history of Dungeons and Dragons films like we have had in the past, you don't tend to really expect much from them, and it delivered and then some. So I'm giving it high praises. This is a great film to watch. Highly recommend you to go out and see it in theaters if you're able to. This is a best movie ever, 8 out of 10. Like I said, go out and see it in theaters. It definitely deserves money to be thrown at it. This is a project to be celebrated. That's going to be a full Flyer Zyler review. I hope that you enjoyed. Please don't be afraid to like, share, subscribe. You know, do all those YouTube things everybody asks you to do anyways. I appreciate the love too. I thank you so much for clicking on this video, spending time with me, and talking movies on top of that. If you plan on seeing this movie, please let me know down in the comments below. If you've already seen this movie, what were your thoughts on the film? Put those down in the comments below. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.